Hi all, good afternoon. This is Chris from ManageEngine New Zealand and from Soft Solutions. Sweet, so much appreciated. So this day two of Secure Shield Virtual 2020 seminar. It's about cybersecurity and IAM online seminar. We got our international speakers with us. They're going to give us more insight. Yesterday was very interesting. A lot of live use case demos and stuff. So today you guys going to learn more about um, real use scenarios and how we can mitigate the cyber threats. Let me move on to the introduction. Hope you guys already know about ManageEngine or Zoho. For the benefit of people who don't, who are not sure about ManageEngine, I'm here to give a brief introduction about it. So ManageEngine is a global brand. It's part of Zoho's global brand. So ManageEngine takes care of, they craft comprehensive IT management solutions. We have like 90 plus, about 120 plus solutions to ensure our IT admins can manage their IT management much more easier. And as you guys can see, there's about 3 million IT users with the solution. And this is rapidly growing as well. So the good news is, most of our ManageEngine solutions are there in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, as well as in the Gartner peer review. And, out of 9 out of 10 customers, Fortune 100 companies are relaying one way or the other with the ManageEngine solutions. And it's widespread. They're in more than 190 plus countries. Here in New Zealand, we have more than 750 business customers using our ManageEngine solutions for managing their IT very effectively. And I'm from Soft Solutions, an exclusive distributor for ManageEngine in New Zealand. And we ensure our customers get the best out of the solution. And we have a team working here in Auckland, Newmarket, and we do travel to our customers' location and ensure the solutions delivery, solutions enablement of ManageEngine tool sets are taken care. And what ManageEngine do is bringing IT together. It's a comprehensive IT management software for all your business needs. What you guys see on the right side is about the segments, the IT management solutions that ManageEngine crafts. So starts from IT service management, where we have a help desk or IT service management solutions, which is ITL ready or a customer facing or asset management tools. Then we have a network management solutions for incident management, alerting, remediation, automating your alerts configuration, network configuration, or firewall analyzing and stuff like that. And then this particular core seminar is about Active Directory and security incident and event management. So pretty much covers under Active Directory and IT security. Then we have our desktop and mobile comes under endpoint management solutions. So it takes care of endpoint management and endpoint security as well, like your vulnerability assessment, firewall, analyzer, configurations, our, log management solutions, security incident and event management tools. And our cloud solutions with the recent new normal happening with a lot of people working remotely and a lot of business, they adopted, quite quick to the cloud, and a lot of our customers are in the journey from their on-premises to the cloud solution. So most of the clients will have on-premises as well as cloud. So it's kind of an hybrid. So ManageEngine as a vendor assists customers alongside with their journey from an on-premises to the cloud. And most of our on-premises solutions can be also hosted in public cloud like AWS or Azure, cloud centers. And then we have analytics. We have tools, but it has to be reported appropriately so that we get a good insight and we can make thoughtful decisions based on what's happening in our infrastructure, what's happening in our environment. So analytics, we have it as an on-prem as well as cloud SaaS tool. plugs into most of our solution and gives us an insightful reports right out of box, and it has an artificial intelligence. So you get a very thoughtful intelligence report out of it. Then comes the server and applications, performance monitoring and management tools. So any of your mission critical applications or mission critical servers can be fully monitored, managed, and you can even be very proactive with synthetics monitoring and make sure your mission critical production servers or applications are always up and running and reduce the downtime. That's where we assist, and all the solution, the priorities on the shield that you guys can see it. It's about the security and about forensics, alerting, auditing, and about the reporting, the intelligence that we get out of our solution, and the effective communication, so that the application needs to alert, notify, and communicate so that the remediation can take place accordingly. And day two's agenda here. So introduction, we just finished the introduction now. And I'm going to introduce our Auckland ManageEngine New Zealand team working in soft solutions, as well as our international speakers. And then today's session will be covered by Harry and Sid. Harry is going to take care of strengthening cybersecurity with machine learning and artificial intelligence, and then followed by Sid, who will be briefing and explaining about security incident and event management. He's going to talk about data analytics and action to remediate and protect our, IT, protect our infrastructure and environment. And then we're going to have the question and answers. Feel free to update your queries and questions in the Q&A section. And also, if you guys need to know anything, like put it across in the chat. We are here to answer your queries. And this is our ManageEngine New Zealand team. Hope you guys might have met me, or we might have seen in the events or conferences in the last 2-3 years. And Dhruv pretty much takes care of our client engagement activities, and he'll be catching up with our customers, making sure that the solutions are delivered or solutions are communicated accordingly, and assist with commercials. We got Kenny, who's our sales engineer, making sure our customer gets the right solution by demoing and ensuring the codes and other commercials are taken care. And I take the responsibility of solutions delivery and ensure all our customers are enabled with the solutions and they're getting the fullest potential. They're utilizing the fullest feature of all our product lines across ManageEngine suite. That's me. And then we have our international speakers. So yesterday, you guys might have met Vivin and Sharada. They were the day one speakers. And today's speaker is going to be Sid and Harry. Harry is going to take the first session, and then it's going to be Sid followed by. Sweet. And this is about the Log 360 complete SIEM solutions. The reason for me putting in this slide is to give a good insight about following a continuation of the yesterday's event. So yesterday is more or less about 80, 360. Today it's more than 80. So it's about Log 360 complete SIEM solutions and how 80 is going to play in part. So we will be covering security analytics, threat and intelligence, UBA, data security, and how the incident can be managed, how it can work with your service desk or your other IT help desk, and how we can monitor the cloud and how those anomalies can be tracked and remediated, and about integrated compliance management. So I believe there's the right time. A lot of big vendors are auditing, and there is an action plan based on your internal and external audit. So if you guys need a solution that will help with your action plan, we are here to help. Over to you, Harry.
Thank you so much, Chris and Soft Solutions. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Chris, if you could just, yeah, perfect. Let me just quickly go ahead and share my screen. Sweet. And I think you all should be able to see my screen right here. Perfect. A very good afternoon. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Soft Solution team, for this amazing event. And we're extremely stoked to be doing this event. And thank you, Sid, for joining in as well. And I would be focusing on the first part of strengthening cybersecurity through machine learning and artificial intelligence. And Sid would follow up and give you a full course into a SIEM practice, best recommendations, and why you need analytics more than ever, especially now. So this is what we have in store for you. And before we actually get started, I just wanted to quickly tell you we are still working from home, and that's exactly the backdrop or the setup would tell you the scene. It's just that I'm going to cut off the video right now just to ensure that the bandwidth is not eaten up and you would still be able to see my screen and hear me okay, right? Let me just quickly go ahead and cut off my video. Perfect. And during the course of my presentation, if you are not able to see me or see my screen or hear me okay, please leave a comment in the chat window. We've got amazing support staff who would definitely go above and beyond to get this sorted, right? So I am Harish Shekhar, and I usually go by the name Harry. For people who have tuned in before, thank you for coming back. And for people who are walking in for the very first time, I sincerely hope and pray that the content is informative. And the easiest way you can reach out to me is through my email address. It's harry@manageengine.com. And I've been with ManageEngine for about 8 years now. And what do I do is I head the business development, and along with the technical evangelism, because they both play hand in hand, I strongly believe a company grows when they get to know the technology and the platforms that they use, how it's used, and what do people actually do with that technology. So this is the base point where I start my talk today, and let's get going. I'm going to jump into the agenda, which is not just what I have written here. I'm going to go above and beyond to drive home the message that your directory services, as we speak, are the base points of any attack. And I'm going to show you some live attacks. I'm going to show you the importance of cybersecurity, starting off with current organizational ecosystem, security vulnerability, and how to defend attacks and their types, and why we should pay utmost importance to cybersecurity, right? So this is the agenda that I have, and the approach that we have taken is problem-based solution. So there is going to be a lot of takeaway for you all, some tips and tricks, some pointers, some action items. So I would strongly encourage you all to focus on the problems. Of course, the solution is going to be from the ManageEngine's aspect of our solution, but the point is the problems are real, and these problems were taken from administrators and IT security professionals across the globe. And how is this going to be relevant for you all is Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, Office 365, or data storage. The platforms are the same. So you could be in Canada, you could be in New Zealand, though the geography is different, the problems are the same. So let's hope and feel that the problems that I'm going to talk, problem Sid is going to talk, gives you an insight of how to stay protected and to safeguard your environment, right? So before we actually get started, I'm going to point you all to some resources. When I say resources, most of them are for free, and it just takes about 2 minutes of your time. And all you just basically need to do is jump into a browser and type blogs.manageengine.com. If you've already been here, fantastic. You know that we constantly keep providing information. If you're just hearing this for the first time, it's never late than ever, because we produce content every single week, or at least 2 to 3 contents a week. This is how passionate we are about a particular job. So this is one of our latest collateral, and advanced Active Directory attacks, simulating domain controller behavior. So for people who love to read, this is the space. For people who love to see, this is the space where we got the AD attack kill chain, what happens, how much time it takes for an attacker to crawl to the deepest part of the network, replication between domain controllers in Active Directory, exploiting replicating privileges. And we just don't stop there. If you love seeing it, we've got a video for you. It just takes about max a minute, where you can quickly understand the DC sync attack on Active Directory, which is widely happening as we speak. And I sincerely hope and pray that you get to know the action items and the defense mechanism to understand how this happens first, and in case if it happens, how to protect your environment through solutions. And I've given you answers through Log 360, and this is just a tip off point. So we get a lot more into our collaterals. Let me quickly go ahead and show you this. So you've got more than one way to gain admin privilege. PowerShell as a cyber attack tool. So I'm going to show you some demonstrations, so stick around, because now with PowerShell or command prompt, these tools are just sufficient to crack open an organization, which is mostly in internal attacks. But PowerShell right now is also being used as an external attack, as a premier tool when a ransomware attacks like Ragnar Ransomware or a high privileged attack. PowerShell is the base point, and these two collaterals will tell you why attackers are coming after PowerShell, and then how a misconfigured user account could lead to a security breach, and then going behind few attacks to understand how that attack happened in the first place, pointers, tips and tricks. Every single collateral that is being pointed out here comes with the problem, answers, and we even give you the possibility of how an attack happened, because no organization reveals the exact mechanism of attack. But what we do is we try to wrap our head and give you the best possible way so that you can consume it and protect your environment. 10 must audit events for hybrid Active Directory and email security breaches. That is one amazing collateral that we put together, because if you've never been breached, touch wood, good, but as Sun Tzu says, it's just a matter of time before everyone gets attacked. And how does it differentiate anyone from another person is how fast you get up without losing much of your information or your data. And that experiment, the email security breaches, will tell you with just a simple email address, one could crack open your organization. So do not worry, the deck will reach out to you very, very soon, or you can reach out to Chris or me or Sid, and we will be more than happy to share these collaterals. And how did I get these information or these collaterals is, of course, as I told you, I get to travel a lot to every part of the world. And I sincerely thank you all for the invitation. And it is through your conversation that I've had, the one-on-ones that we've got together, my experience moving into the client's environment. This is what you all have shared. So what I did is, for questions which I needed answers, I came back, touched surface, and with my team put these collaterals. And so basically the pain points are from administrators and IT security professionals. With that being said, I do have a request. So in case if you are experiencing any IT security concerns or hybrid Active Directory or identity access related concerns, just drop us an email and we would at least point you in the right direction. And one thing that as a team we believe is this is just not outright product positioning, but a place where everybody can learn from each other, right? So these are the resources and they should be reaching your inbox pretty soon. And let's see what's happening in the current organizational ecosystem. And I'm going to tell you what was in the past, what is now, and how things are going to shape in the future as well. And the current organizational ecosystem, everybody wanted their important information to stay within their four walls. And there's no better place to look at than Active Directory, because this is what Active Directory propagates. Bring in your users, devices, and data, put them together, consolidate them, and you can get better management, better reporting, a better view of what's happening in your environment. And this is what is happening right now as we speak, because people just don't have on-premise, they're moving into the cloud. So you've got different platforms to take care, but about the same user, same device or data, but you've got way different platforms, so that the data must be available, data must be protected, and it should be ensured that nobody else is taking away your precious data. And this is where the heroes, the administrators and security professionals, are finding it extremely difficult to understand or comprehend who's got what access to what level, because attackers are just preying on one small misconfiguration or one vulnerability as we speak. And for the heroes, the administrators and security professionals, we need to get it right all the time. So this is where things are completely different. There's always a saying, when you want to achieve something, you can achieve it, but maintaining it is extremely difficult. And that is where the attacks and open, they just walk into an organization, and within the shortest amount of time, they just want to crawl to the deepest part of the network, which has been the reason or the sole motive of any attack. And the reasons for attacks are poor identity access management, poor asset scanning, poor securing privileged access, no IT governance or SIEM solution to go back in time to do the forensics, no understanding user entity behavior analysis, no data leak prevention or data loss prevention in an organization, and many other reasons. But the top listed ones are the ones that I've labeled on this particular image, right? But as we speak about the current organizational ecosystem, one major Active Directory vulnerability as we speak, I'm not sure how many of you know this, this was exposed in August 2020. It's just about a couple of months back. And the link that I have embedded at the last will give you a good information about what Microsoft is trying to tell us. So let me go ahead and show you this. So this is the net logon elevation of privilege vulnerability, and it was published on the 11th of August and last updated on the 28th of November. And it's just about a couple of weeks back. So this is new. This vulnerability is giving away everything of an organization. And I sincerely hope and pray that you all have started taking actions, because the actions are going to be in two specific steps. One is there is an immediate patch, but that's not the final patch. The final patch with all the recommendations and steps are going to be out in 2021. So this is the Microsoft article, which I want you all to read. And this will tell you what you need to do, how you need to protect your environment, steps, some recommendations and workarounds that Microsoft has given you. So for instance, this is what it says. Microsoft has not identified any workarounds for this vulnerability. So it tells you that we all need to pay attention, and it is very, very important that we stick around with this. But I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to protect your environment on this specific case. And for people who are listening to this for the very first time, or hearing this or seeing this vulnerability, it's called the net logon vulnerability. And this has been making headlines for being the most elevated, notorious elevation of privilege. And this will affect all computers and domain controllers in an organization. And the high risk vulnerability, which is also known as a zero log on, gives the threat actor the easiest and the instant access to domain controller access, and all without additional privilege. So to put it in a nutshell, a user does not even have to authenticate, but just has to be connected to the domain. So this is where things get complicated, right? So this is basically on the authentication protocol that validates the authenticity and identity of a domain joined computer to the domain controller with a high CVSS score of 10. This dangerous bug is easy to exploit and allows even the low-skilled threat actors to get their hands onto your entire network, right? And where is the problem is in that specific, on my left image on the screen. This happens because of the authentication and the encryption mechanism. So what happens is there's a client and the server. The client is the domain joined computer. The server is the domain controller. So client challenges with an 8-bit number, and the server challenges back again with it. A session key is generated. That's the client credential. And then both client and server utilizes the previously made session key and the challenges to create client server credentials. And then the authentication goes through, right? But before you jump onto the right side image on my screen, let me tell you the exact vulnerability, which is because of the encryption, and it has been implemented in an unsecure way, and it is AES-CF V8. That is I just wanted to get the exact terms right. And this encryption is not secure currently because your Active Directory needs immediate patching, and it just does not stop there. What you basically need to do is understand how this attack happens. So this is basically setting empty passwords, which could happen through the handshake, which I explained before. So your domain controllers need immediate patching, but it just does not stop there. Just patching won't cut it. You can even mitigate them through a SIEM solution, and you can track all of this. And these are the steps that you need to pay attention to. Track successful logon attempts in the servers with event ID 4624 with logon type. Type 3 is network logon, followed by 4742 event with target username anonymous logon, with the same username and device name as the event ID 4624. So this pattern will clearly tell you if this specific problem exists in your environment, and these are telltale signs to watch. And event ID 5829, whenever there's a vulnerable net logon, secure channel connection is allowed. So you need to track 5829. Offensive open source tools are often misused to attack and to gain deeper access and elevate privileges, and credentials can be dumped from your local memory. And detection is sysmon event ID 10 with target image with the executable, and mimikatz can be used along with netlogon to gain access to password hashes, and the detection mechanism for that is sysmon event ID 7 and image loaded equal to, and these are all special keywords and extensions that you need to pay attention to. So all of this is available with Log360, the SIEM solution, which me and Sid will be talking today. And since this is taking the world by storm, this is potentially giving the keys to your kingdom to the attacker. So this is important, and I request you all to please work on this specific vulnerability, because all the attacker needs now is just work on a machine to gain access, and through that access they can potentially do anything and everything that they want, right? That is my first action item to you all. Ensure that all of your domain controllers are patched. If you need more information on this vulnerability, write to me, because we are putting in a collateral, and that should be released very, very soon. And that is why I'm giving you all of this information. And let's start our conversation. So will you click? This is a bait for ransomware, but on the left is a highly clicked or has the highest number of click ratio for a particular email. And on the right is a social experiment, which I was a part of. The left email, which is one of the highest clicked bait ratio, which has one of the highest click bait ratio, has a subject line in the past which says, please do not click or download the attachment. But now with this pandemic, people are taking that threat and scaring people. Chances of you getting COVID-19. So click on the attachment and it blows up your organization. And this is where your access, your identity access, and the amount of privilege one has comes into play. And on the right is a social experiment, which I was a part of. They just gave me an offer, which was legitimate, but there was an experiment where my friend had to pay the price. So he was taken for a ride. And that is exactly why I'm telling you, as we speak, the coronavirus ransomware is taking the world by storm. And if you have been affected by coronavirus, I hope you are back on your feet. But if your organization is affected by coronavirus, then it's time that you need to check these symptoms and see if your organization was ever attacked in the first place. So it copies itself with a random name to the local app data location and sets a registry key under the current version, deletes backups and shadow files. And next it starts encrypting all of these files with the extension, right? These are just the beginning, but what you need to do is you need to have correlation. You need to have procedures in place to check multiple events at multiple places to ensure that your organization is safe and sound. So what do we have is Log 360 as a ready-made template. And when I say ready-made template, you just got to enable it, and it will look into a file was created on Windows, a new Windows process is started, and again, a new Windows process with a different process name or a device name, and then a file is deleted on Windows. All of this is sequential within a specific time frame, and you can even mitigate an action. So stay tuned, because Sid will break open all of these in detail, but I'm just going to give you what is possible within the timeline that I have. And Ragnar Ransomware, as I told you, take a look at these steps. These steps are using administrative tools, so nobody will pay attention to them, to PowerShell. And Ragnar Ransomware uses a GPO task to execute a Microsoft installer, and then scheduled tasks are created in group policy preferences, and the MSI app are allowed to deploy an executable, a batch file name, and then running the executable creates a new process, and then the virtualization software is copied to the local folder in an attempt to terminate the antivirus process and other services. So where am I taking you is, this is the gateway for any possible attack. People love clicking, vulnerabilities, everything. We have answers for you, but if you are using any other solution, please start asking for answers through that solution, because these ransomwares is just not Ragnar, it is mailed to Corona. There is a snake ransomware for which the attack is not like a regular ransomware. The snake, if you are interested in knowing about more ransomware attacks, again, reach out to us. The whole idea about this talk today is to ensure that we give you more information of what's happening in the current world, right? And we have templates, ready-made templates, which will help you stay protected. So this is also something that I want you all to pay attention, right? So now moving ahead, let's understand attacks and their types. You've got internal, you've got external. When I talk about internal, it's about users and privileged users, and external is phishing, brute force, or any combination which does not involve an internal user, right? It's showtime. So let me quickly go ahead and show you something live. And before I show you that live, it is good to see why directory services are the key information resources, because when you ask a question, it gives you back an answer. And when you talk the same language as the directory service, it will be more than happy that, wow, this is the question that I've been waiting for, and it starts giving you the answer, right? So as we speak, I am not sure how many of you have given access to command prompt or PowerShell to your end users, which is where I am going to start off my talk. Fantastic. Hope you all can see my screen. Let me quickly go ahead. I'm going to do two experiments. One is as a privileged user. I'll keep the experiment fair and square. I'll show you who I am, what privilege I have. Harry is a part of domain admins. And what does Harry do? Simply, with the power that he has, Harry can just quickly go ahead, right click, run as administrator, which is not required, but I'm just going to show you the token of elevation that Harry uses right now. DS query, inactive, 15. Oops, wrong command, hang on. Just that I had put the user with a hyphen. So I'm not sure how many of you are watching this. So if you are focused on something else, this is important, and I want your attention back again here. It is a DS query, which I queried my directory service, and it's given me answers that about I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of my people who have been inactive for the past 15 days. This is just not only for users, this is for groups, this is for contacts, this is for your computers. This becomes my UI to go ahead and query and get my information, but it does not stop there. DS query user disable 15. So basically what this does is it disables those 15 users. So look at how simple my work is going to be. So as an internal user or a privileged user, are you monitoring what he or she is doing? But you might be wondering, Harry, why should I monitor a privileged user? Because since they have the privilege, so here is my take, since they have the privilege, they should be monitored. And guess what? DS query, not everybody will be able to get their hands on, but only on machines where you've installed Active Directory domain services. But the problem is you cannot audit that by default. So this is how complicated your actions are going to be. So for a specific DS query anybody does, nobody even pays attention because it is using command prompt. It is using an elevation of token response. So in that case, nobody pays attention, quickly actions are done. And by the time you realize this has happened, it will take about a few days or few months because there are logs, but it's just that it's not very visible on the eye. So this is my first experiment. My second experiment is as a user who has zero privilege. Let me quickly go ahead and log in as Harish to show you the experiment. Harish is just a part of domain users. He does not have any access whatsoever. And to prove it, let me quickly log in as Harish. Fantastic. And now instead of command prompt, I am going to open up PowerShell. And I can even show you what privilege I have. I don't even have my admin package installed on this machine. I want to change my adapter, anything and everything, but ultimately it's just that I do not have any access whatsoever, right? But my organization has given me access to PowerShell. So what I want to do is find out who I am, fantastic, and then go ahead, find out what privilege my administrator has given me. I don't even have to ask anyone, and I don't have to be a PowerShell guru as well. You can see what privilege I have, and then I can go ahead, find out who are my privileged users. It gives me what 7 people who are a part of my domain admins, and then I can find my privileged resources, and I can go ahead and perform something which many organizations are aware of, but it's just that it's difficult to track, right? So I am going to invoke a domain password spray attack on the organization, but Microsoft is amazing. It tells me that you're not allowed to do this. But when something is amazing, you can always go and talk to it and say that, listen, I have a purpose to do this. And this is exactly what I am going to do is PowerShell.exe bypass, right? And the same command which was blocked before will be allowed to go in right now. So this is where I am getting at, that things are so easy to get into an organization and get some commands. 3, 4, and I'm going to use the widely used password across the globe, which is password at 1234. So watch my screen. So right now, I do not have any of my users with the password at 1234. It is checking my password policy. And in case if there is any password that is a match through the hash, it will be listed right here. And I have got a username and password, which I can just quickly crack open. I can just do password at 123, password at 1234. I want you all to do this experiment in your organization and see if you get the same result as mine. This is a test lab, but I ensure that I don't use any weak password. I sincerely hope and pray that you all get to know, perform this experiment. But the actual problem is monitoring these things are extremely difficult. And that is exactly where I'm going to take you into AD Audit Plus, which is a part of Log 360, will give you real-time answers. So for instance, on PowerShell, process tracking or script logging, it will tell you who did what, when, where with date and time. module logging, what modules were logged in, what scripts were used, who did it from where, what scripts were used with details. You can even go ahead, get back in time. It will give you real-time information. Let me go ahead. 6 months, whoever has used PowerShell and whatever he or she has done with name, Harry has done one event, what was done, username, you can add and remove columns. This is just not only for PowerShell, even for your process tracking, new process created for the last 1 hour, it will tell me DS query was done by specific user Harry. So let me go ahead, about 6 weeks, to tell you what Harry has ever done using the privilege he or she has. Quickly go ahead, search DS query, and it will tell me everything in action. Take a look at this with date and time. Harry, token of elevation 3, what query he or she performed. So this is where we are taking auditing to a whole new level, because these are all things which we knew, but we thought nobody will take advantage of these specific UIs. So this is what your directory services are capable of. So you need to take utmost care of monitoring every single activity, because now you have increased devices, resources, and widespread access, which brings me to critical points to address on your hybrid Active Directory. What are the users doing with the access? Are there effective controls for monitoring access? Can auditors verify that the controls are working? So to address these questions, you need to understand that the thought process behind monitoring should be completely different. Example, of course, the first ironing out factor should be who did what, when, where. Find out which of your privileged users are inactive. But the third point is crucial. It should just not only look at security logs, but find out the behind the scenes who did what, when, where, plus query your Active Directory to give you deeper insights. So this is where your alerts, your correlations are both built together, should talk hand in hand, and to give you key deeper insights about your Active Directory, Office 365, Azure. This is where I am going to, deal my talk with. Sid will be talking about the remaining aspects, and any activity or any alert that you set your hands on should mitigate activities based on conditions. So it should, so the first level, or at least 2 levels of attacks that has happened should counter response itself, should talk to your incident tool. And this is where we are taking our Log 360 to help you stay protected and get answers almost real time, and to stay protected, right? So first things first, if the attack pattern crawling into the deepest part of the network, and the first way people get their access on is through VPN remote access. Now, many people are still working from home, and for the last 6 months, most of us were working from home. So VPN access was crucial. So please track user logon activity, radius logon activity, and remote gateway activity. If you are a Microsoft ecosystem and no other place to look at, please start considering radius logon or remote gateway activity, because they give you additional protocols and conditions to let people certain IP address to walk into your organization, because still many organizations welcome username and password, and they authenticate straight with the directory service, which is good, but it can still be better, because there's no 2-factor authentication. And I hope Active Directory does not give you 2-factor authentication, but your applications give you that. So if you're using Fortinet, Cisco, etc. So just ensure that you beef up your security. And the remote gateway activity is more or less like your MSTSC. It's on a hosted environment where you have a dedicated server through the internet, and through a specific port, people can log into your domain. And on the other side, your remote desktop protocol access has been an extended threat, and 2 layers of events are triggered, one on the VPN gateway server and one would be on the endpoint. And the catch is, do not let the events just get away, because logs do not lie. catch the events that do not match the above pattern. Example, 4624, 4674. There are other event IDs that you need to 4800, 4801 for computer lock and unlock. So all of these events, you should catch them. And in case if there is a pattern which does not meet the sequence, I want you to get an notification or a failure alert or a possibility that this has never occurred. Here is what is happening. So your system must take actions for you all. So this is the Radius NPS failure. Login failure, it will tell you who did what, when, where, and the reason for the failure. We just don't do only Active Directory based logon, but Radius NPS, which does talk to your Active Directory, we even go into that. We even check for account lockouts. We even check for the possible reason why an account got locked out or login failures in the first place. So this is what we have. But before I show you this, since hybrid Active Directory has taken the world by storm, what we thought is, how could we eliminate the multiple consoles, but bring everything under one pane of glass? So your Active Directory log-ons are right on the screen. And when you have the Azure Active Directory on the right side for your Office 365 Azure, you can check for your login activity and for your hybrid logon activity. How did the user get their hands onto the domain and through the domain to the applications? So this is also into AD Audit Plus. So if you are on an earlier build or if you are using the hybrid infrastructure, AD Audit Plus can put everything under one pane of glass to ensure that you have answers for all of your questions, right? And what does a user do once they try gaining their access through VPN or a brute force or a password spray attack? Is they start surveying the domain. So this is where you have to go ahead. You just can't block PowerShell. You just can't block command prompt. You need to understand them deep. So that is where I'm going to point you back to my resources, where we have put extensive knowledge on how to go about dealing with PowerShell, because it could be weaponized. So please start tracking all of the information. And even if you block PowerShell with simple DLL file, one can still execute PowerShell. So this is the power of PowerShell. So if any surveying is done on the domain through command prompt, through PowerShell, or writing a script and running it on your Active Directory or your Office 365 Azure, you need to know all about this, because surveying the domain for critical information helps attacker target their attacks. And moving ahead, elevation could be a backdoor account or could be through groups. When I say groups, it could be direct, indirect, or nested. And did you know that groups can give admin access to through nested group privileges or direct, or this is even for your Exchange, SQL, because all of this, when you install, you get a certain amount of groups that come into your Active Directory. And you need to pay attention to all of that as well. So any security group changes, you should be aware of, and it should all be real time. So what do we have for you all is under reports, group reports, group management, recently modified groups. On a Hawkeye view, it will tell me what has been done, but please do take a look. It tells me group name help desk, which is just any group, but here is what I want you all to see is under the help desk group. Let me go ahead, right click, find. This is one group which every organization will have, but the problem is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members, but the member of deals to domain admin. So this is a nested group, which your command or your query will not give you answers about nested groups. So I want you to first skim out how many groups you have, how many nested groups you have. This will give you a good eyesight on who's got what privilege to what level. So let me go back again into my deck. So these are things that you need to stay protected. And when we talk about groups, I can even give you answers for one of the most important questions which I post is find out which of my privileged users are inactive. So login activity based on DC or IP address or user logon activity. select objects, group-based users, domain admins, because in my organization, they are the key. Click on domain admins, and now this will tell me for the last 24 hours, nobody from that group have been active, but let me see for the last 6 weeks. It will tell me who logged from where, who have been active, how did they authenticate, the failure reason, and you can even go one step ahead and find out the actual reason, right? So these are all things which you need to wrap your focus on, or your specific requirement. You just got to question the tool and the tool will give you answers. And detecting security permission changes. When I talk about group permissions, they're different. Security permissions are talking about the ACL, ACE entries, and container permission changes. Example, delegation of control wizard. If you go into Active Directory and perform certain delegation rights, it is very difficult to find out who's got what accesses, who gave that access. With AD audit, we can monitor permission changes on your container, on your OU, on your domain level permission changes, group permissions, users, computer, all of it can be tracked, and every single alert that comes your way can be counter triggering another operation as well, right? And moving into the hybrid space, Office 365, as we speak, many people still believe that Office 365 with MFA enabled is more secure than on-premise. Yes, I agree, but understand it is also susceptible to a breach, and it can be breached, and it was breached. So the Office 365 mailbox was recently breached, and people did go back to Microsoft asking for answers. Can't we get a brute force report? Can't we get a PowerShell password spray report? Can't we get a remote PowerShell report? For which Microsoft told them to enable threat intelligence, which is a part of the E5 license. And the costing is enormous. I'm not going to get there, but we did listen to our comments from our customers, and we have now incorporated that into AD Audit Plus. Be it your brute force login failure, be it your remote PowerShell, or be it your password spray attack, we would now give you a notification once we sense that this is happening in your network, or even if your MFA is misused. So an attacker did, guess your password, but they don't have your authentication, the multi-factor authentication, which you have enabled with them, but they can just keep checking for possibilities and see if they can get their hands onto your network. We can even sense that. So we are taking care of your hybrid infrastructure monitoring end to end, and we just don't stop there. If you know the event ID, and you can just skim them, because we give you the error codes, and through the error codes, the description of a particular attack in Office 365 or Azure can also be monitored, right? So other important activities to track is remote workers equipment policy changes, group policy changes. And when I say remote workers equipment policy, let me show you what I have, because as we speak, this pandemic, in my test lab, I have few group policy objects, which is remote workforce, remote workers equipment policy changes. And the reason why I'm asking you to pay attention to group policy objects is there are about 1,500 plus settings, and to look into every single setting is scary, time consuming, and half of it is beyond a common man's knowledge. So that is exactly why you need to understand every single small change in group policy could crack open your organization. And the reason why I picked the remote workers equipment group policy change is when there is a sudden change, we start moving into the pilot projects. We start creating group policies and associating endpoints with that group policy, and it just stays as it is. So to an administrator, we would be thinking that the domain policy is talking all the way to all the endpoints. So this is where the attacker, all they need is to scan those specific endpoints. They crawl in, they sit unnoticed, and once everything seems okay, they just start crawling, and it just takes about 48 hours before they get their hands on to one of the most privileged user, which is your domain administrator, right? All of this, I'm not saying, This is what Microsoft is saying, and all of the information that I'm sharing today is available on the internet, or I can point you in the right direction too. So take a look at the group policy changes. Any changes with version number, with policy setting will be tracked under group policy reports. Recently modified group policy objects. I do not have any for the last 30 days, but group policy setting changes, password policy changes for the past 60 days or 6 months. Let me see if I have any. So in that case, there is no changes that I've ever made. So, but I'm not sure about your environment. So please ensure that all of these changes are tracked, and file integrity monitoring with filter added, excluding internal subnets, monitor electronic traffic during non-business hours, permissions privilege changes, account lockout. This is something that is one of the reasons why AD Audit Plus has grown to a whole new level, is because it helps you analyze why an account got locked out in the first place. Reasons, we look into almost 9+ components. Click on Harish, analyzer details. Lockout analyzer for Windows services, schedule tasks, network drive mapping, logon sessions, COM objects, applications, active sync, recent logon, local logon, OWA active sync, and radius NPS. So we are narrowing down the possible reason as to how an account got locked out, so you can ensure that the lockout calls that come your way are wiped out, because you're going to give not just only unlock them, but you're going to give them the answers as to go ahead and please change the same password on your shared network drive, right? And then moving ahead, some more recommendations, and then I will pass it to Sid. Disabled user account logon attempt is, this is what I would term as the ghost account reappearing. Password never expires enabled for your service accounts, cover roasting, logon failures for admin users, right? And then last but not the least, where we induce machine learning as a kickoff point for your hybrid AD or your data storage, is user entity behavior analysis, where it defines user activity, sets a baseline, and any deviation or anomaly is flagged, and we give you analytics for risk assessment or anomalies, which is a part of AD Audit Plus. And all you just need to do is install them, and for the past 4 to 5 days, it will just sit unnoticed. And from once we have a definite baseline of an user activity, we will understand that the anomalies will be triggered off. This is for risk assessment. You've got users connected to most assets, hyperactive accounts, accounts with high percentage of logon failure, dormant admin accounts, privileges utilized by user, and a lot more. And this is where we have imbibed machine learning, and you don't have to do anything, and the tool will automatically do everything for you. So here is a challenge from my side. So install Log 360, and the portion which I covered on AD Audit Plus, you can put your Active Directory under radar in less than 30 minutes. And for your hybrid Active Directory in just a couple of hours. The reason why I'm asking that is the hybrid will be focused by someone, the on-premise will be taken care by another administrator. So if you could get the credentials together, you can test the solution all by yourself. And don't stop there. Keep your feedback coming to Harry at ManageEngine with whatever I shared today, with any comments, feedback, thoughts, or your problems related to IT security or hybrid access. I would be looking forward to your email from you. And without further ado, life is just not only about Windows. There are other components that you need to pay attention to. And I'm going to pass over the stage to Sid, who will give you more amazing tips to protect your environment. Thank you, and Sid, over to you.